Well, Sarah, as we were just talking, I am so excited to talk with you and have you share so much awesome, exciting, and kind of gross information with my audience. But it's all good stuff. It's
Yes.
all good stuff. It's all out of, just wanting to learn, right? And knowing so much more about our body and health and all that. So, Sarah, I want you to start just because you haven't been on my podcast yet. And I want you to just let everyone who's listening get to know who you are and why you're doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me on, Erica. I loved our initial conversation, and I just love connecting with other practitioners and learning other people's stories, and learning from each other in the things that we're engaging in, because there's, especially in the holistic or functional health world, it really kind of is the wild, wild west. Like, and we are just kind of moving through, moving into the next thing, and learning and growing kind of as you go. So it's always fun to connect with new people. But yeah, so I started, I am an FDN practitioner, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and that's how we connected, obviously. And my health journey really led me to becoming an FDN practitioner. So I got really sick in 2016. I mean, really sick. I had diarrhea for 6 weeks. I was completely exhausted. I would get up in the morning at 8, be at work downtown by 9, come home between 2 and 4, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, get up, have dinner, go to sleep, do it all over again the next day. And I lived that way for about 6 months before I was like, I can't keep doing this. I'm not okay. Something is really wrong. And so I went to urgent care, and the urgent care doctor like poked my tummy a couple of times, put me on the worst antibiotic on the market right now, like to the point where the FDA is about to take it off the market for its
Which one?
neurological.
Which one is it?
Cipro.
Oh, yes.
Cipro.
Cipro's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so put me on the worst antibiotic on the market, and gave me an anti-diarrheal and sent me on my way. And I was just like, this is not helping. Like, this is not going to solve my problems. It doesn't help me understand what's actually happening in my body. And I mean, no fault to him. Like, he's in urgent care. I don't have a general practitioner. I haven't had one for a really long time, since I was a teenager and I left home. And so, he's just doing what he does and what he's trained to do. So it's not, I don't hold anything against him. And it didn't help me move forward in my health journey. And so I ended up onboarding with my functional practitioner, and I had met him in 2011, but we were not in a position to afford it. And so it took until 2016, when my body really broke, for me to like fork over the cash, because nothing in the functional world is really covered by insurance or traditional ways of paying for things. And so forked over the cash in 2016 and ran all the labs, ran the poop, the blood, the pee, and really dug into some of those healing opportunities, and discovered that I had some SIBO going on. At some points, there were some parasites that were detected on the GMF, which is really rare. And yeah, and just had some other things that my DNA was almost resting, which is really problematic, because your DNA like creates all your cells, and then if your cells are not producing properly, things can go really wrong. And so basically at 30, I was told if I didn't shift something, if we didn't do something to intervene and heal my body, I was basically like looking at like a cancer, tumors, or growth like diagnoses later on in life. And so that, at 30, I mean, I lifted all the time. I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I was doing all the right things. And it didn't, I apparently wasn't, and I thought I was living a healthy lifestyle, but my body was clearly giving me information that there were other things that were going on that I didn't understand. And so we started cleaning some stuff up, and went gluten-free, which was a huge thing for me. As gluten-free as you kind of can be in our culture right now. And um, shifted some nutrition stuff and started kind of tackling the overgrowth of bad bacteria in my gut and started to feel better, started to reclaim some energy. But then in 2018, I had like really had some highs and lows and gained like 40 pounds because my body was healing. And it was like, I'm really tired of like, I'm stuck. And so he's like, all right, I hear you. Let's go ahead and run some more labs. So we ran another, series of labs to see what was going on. And no parasites showed up or anything like that on the GI map, which is very common that it doesn't show up. But I had been doing some research and I was like, I really think I might have some parasites. And I've been going through the symptoms and I was like, I really just kind of tick all these boxes here. And he was like, I hear you. I agree. And he really took my experience seriously. And that really meant a lot to me because that's kind of rare to find. You find practitioners that will run the labs and treat your labs, or you find coaches or, nutritionists who will give you information based on your symptoms, but it's just really rare to find someone who will actually take into consideration both. And so he really did that. And he was like, we're going to start a protocol. And sure enough, if it wasn't 3 days, I kid you not, after I started this protocol, I started pooping worms. And I poop worms.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I know, it's wild. It's so wild. I've got pictures and tons of what's called biofilm, which we can talk about. But I started pooping worms and within like 6 months, I was feeling so much better. And then, so that's a huge component of my journey, which is actually what brought us together. And so now it's just about healing the damage from that and getting into those deeper layers of healing and restoring of energy, restoring of hormone health, restoring of the immune system. And so that's a little, and here I am today. I took that health journey and discovered FDN in 2020 and completed the program in the beginning of 21 and started my own practice. So now I get to take what I learned along my own journey and I get to help people heal their bodies as well. So it's a really rewarding space that I'm in now.
Well, Sara, thank you for sharing all of that. So let's get in. Let's talk about parasites today. I think because I just want to start off with the statement, right? Because for years, right, I've heard of people that they have people put, either a practitioner or chiropractor, whoever has put people on, parasite cleanses, and then that person potentially could get really, really sick. So I'm like the person where I'm like, I'm very intuitive and I'm like, I don't know. I don't really feel like we should be getting super sick, like so sick. I mean, I know people that have legitimately had to be sent to the hospital because they had such die-off reactions. So this is a thing where I think, I just want to start off as we start to talk about all these things for people listening to understand, like, okay, Sara and I are saying, run out and do a parasite cleanse. We're going to get and talk about things because there is a right way to do it. And there is a very wrong way to do it. And I feel like so much out there that's taught is like, oh, just go do this cleanse and cleanse the parasites. And everything that I know and Sara's been through, and like, I've been on this deep dive, which is how Sara and I connected. Cause I was like, I'm trying to put these pieces together with parasites, because something that many of you may not know is like, there's so much newer stuff coming out about parasites, right? Like I feel like, and you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to kill them. Like there's so much more to it. So Sara, where do we start in unpacking this conversation about parasites? I almost think like, I would like you to actually, I know you mentioned symptoms, right? And you were like, I checked the boxes. Could you name off, like, what are some of those top symptoms? Now, everybody listening, keep in mind, just because you have the symptoms doesn't necessarily mean it is parasites. There can be other things. And as FDN practitioners, this is what we're really good at, is we're really good at looking at the entire picture. But just keep in mind, this might be something that, if you're listening, you've been struggling with some health stuff and you've never gone down this route. This hopefully maybe at least open up a door for you to start
Yeah.
exploring and learning more. And that's what my hope is for every episode that we do, right?
I love that so much. I love that. Yeah. So some of my symptom presentation, I it's really interesting. I think I've actually had parasites my whole life. I think I got them as a kid. And so I I think the terrain of my container, as I like to say, was really impacted by trauma. And so I was a little trauma baby. I had developmental trauma between the ages of 0 to 5. And so my brain really developed down a stress or a cortisol pathway instead of like a happy little serotonin baby. And so when the brain develops that way, the body follows suit. And so my body was, from a very young age, has been very susceptible to bad bacteria and parasites and environmental toxins and food allergies and, all that stuff. So I think to start the conversation is to go back and say that I think these critters have been invited into my container from a very young age. And so getting rid of them is truly a process of transforming the container. But my symptom presentation, so the biggest one is probably acne. I've had acne since I was an itty bitty. And even so, we're in the middle of a full moon right now. So I'm not sure when this will get posted, but right now it's the big full blood moon or flower moon, or I don't even know. That's not really my jam. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, because there isn't. It's just not what I understand. But so and parasites are very active on the full moon. And so one of the reasons why I know that I'm still kind of healing my body in my container from this parasite infection and the parasite presence is I have acne on my face right now. Like my face is breaking out. And so I'm like, okay, I know what that means. For me, I know what that means. And so acne is a really big indicator. Skin issues in general is a really big indicator, because most of our detox happens, and our skin is our largest detox organ. And so it really reflects what's happening on the inside. So rashes, hives, eczema, psoriasis, acne, all that stuff is usually tied to gut health. And so that's a big one. A lot of mucus production for me. So like I just had that constant runny nose, like constant dripping and constant like clearing of the throat, and like the flow of mucus production, which is your immune system reacting to something that's not supposed to be there. And so it's just another indicator. And so that was another one. And I've been constipated since I was a little girl. Like that's just been something that's always been a part of my life, up until this season of healing. And now I go regularly. I poop regularly every day. It's great. I don't have any issues with that. Yeah, so there's been a lot of wonderful healing in that space. But so those I think would be like the main symptoms for me. The immune system reaction with skin issues, the drippy nose, the constipation, and then the digestive stuff, the gas and bloating. That's something that's been present in my life for all my life. Excuse me. So yeah, so those I think would be the primary,
some of the main
symptoms.
Ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the main ones.
There can be so many, and so many times there's never just one thing. Like it's not just parasites. And I love how you kind of told your, as a child, and like that's what I also too, right? When I work with someone, and I've had this too, is like as a child, I was on so many antibiotics because I was always sick. And the thing that we have to recognize, and when a body has had so many antibiotics, is that knocks down your natural good bacteria, and it really leaves your body susceptible for parasites and all sorts of other stuff. And like I grew up on a farm, and I'm sure like you can get it from the dirt. You can get it if I know people like, I'm always like, what if they travel out of the country, right? Things like that. I'm always like, if I travel out of the country and come back, I'm definitely doing a parasite eradication protocol when I get back, not letting those things live in me for a long time, right?
Yes.
So I want you to talk about, because I know when we talked before, you said something really interesting that I did not know, which makes sense as to why, like when we run GI maps, the GI map is great, right? Because it shows like kind of an overall like functioning of someone's healthy or dysbiotic gut, right? But
Yep.
parasites rarely show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so can you talk about why parasites can actually be really hard to test for, especially if it's a DNA test? I know there's another test out there that
Yeah.
like someone manually looks at your stool and can find parasites and finds them like 100% of the time. It's kind of gross to realize this, but
yeah. That's fun. Yeah. So these buggers, these critters are really, really fantastic at hiding. And so in order for a DNA stool lab to pick up the presence of a parasite, first of all, the parasite has to die, right? And you have to poop it out. And then it has to be a DNA match for the type of parasite that they're actually testing for. And so these little critters, they are just excellent at surviving. So if you think about bacteria and protozoa and like bugs, they have been around long before us humans have, and they will be around long after us humans. Like they are the quintessential survivors. And so one of the things that they do is it can mimic the person's DNA. And so it confuses your immune system. So your immune system is like, can kind of recognize that there's something that's not supposed to be there, but doesn't know what it is and can't find it because they're really good at hiding. And so if your immune system can't find it, if it can't identify it, then really it makes it like you can't kill it, right? So, and their whole job, parasites' job, are to survive. That is all. That's it. That's all they do all day, every day is survive. And so they are looking for ways to do that. And so they will, so they mimic their DNA, our DNA. And I mean, I literally on one of my GI maps, when I first started FDN, because we get to run one of those, I was like, I had just done the GI map like 3 months before with my practitioner, but I was like, because you poop in a thing, you got to dig and put it in there, right? It's a super fun process, gang. Like it's super
fun. So everyone has to do it once or twice, or, you know.
I agree. But I like literally, I shoved like biofilm in there. I shoved a worm in there, and I was like, tell me what this is. And it didn't show up. It still didn't show up.
Crazy.
It is wild. Yeah. So they're really good at hiding, and they hide underneath biofilm. So I like to think of biofilm as like a shield. And so it kind of prevents your immune system from understanding what is there. So it can't really see properly. And so then that confuses the immune system. The immune system activates because something's there that's not supposed to be there, but you can't figure it out. And so when your immune system is activated and confused, it creates a whole cascade of things that can go wrong in the body. And so a lot of issues can truly be repaired just by eliminating the presence of parasites. But then, of course, you have to dig deeper. And this is why a one-off parasite cleanse doesn't work, because you do have to dig deeper and figure out why the container that you occupy every day allowed for parasites to come in and take up a position. And so you have to heal your container, not just get rid of them, but you have to heal your container. And that takes time, energy and effort and intention. So
when you're talking about, because I know people are going to be thinking, okay, so healing my container, right? Healing my body, working to, which I mean, I know what that means, but can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that? Like, what are some things that people really need to be addressing or being more aware of, even when it comes to, because like I said right out the gate, I'm like, you cannot just eradicate parasites like that. You can't. And that's the whole thing we're finding out in holistic health, right? Is it comes down to we have to address the body as a whole, and we cannot spot treat one thing. Like you can temporarily feel a little bit better, but if you just do one parasite protocol and you might feel so ill, is it even worth it if you're not doing all the other pieces? Because they're still there underneath that
Right.
biofilm in your organs and the lining
Right.
of your gut. Like who knows where else they might
Yep.
be harboring themselves in your body, right? I had a friend the other day that was starting to do some parasite protocol, and she notices when she starts that her shoulder pain goes away. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. So she's like, does that mean there's parasites in my shoulder? I'm like, well, maybe. I don't know. Like
Probably.
it's crazy, right? To think that. And again, the whole thing, right? Because my expertise is movement. So I would always say, no matter what with pain, we still have to work on improving your biomechanics of how you move. But
Yes.
because I worked with so many people over the years, and now I have the FTN and I'm working with more people on such a deeper level, really
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there's multifacets to the
Mm-hmm.
body. And so while pain many times can be because of dysfunctional movement, if the pain is not going away and we're doing that and we have a lot of other symptoms, okay, it might be time to start digging a little bit deeper. So can you kind of
Mm-hmm.
talk about like what some of those other things when it comes to like we've got to heal our body as a whole that
Yeah.
people need to be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what I've really come to learn, and I continue to learn, is that to heal the container, you have to dig down to the cellular level and to the DNA and really cleaning out your cells, cleaning out your blood, like and so it isn't just about removing the stressor. That's a big part of it, right? We got to decrease the stress in the body so that the body has the space or the margin to actually work the way it's designed to work, because our body wants to heal. It's very resilient and very much adapts to its environment so that it can survive. And so really it's almost like there's this battle going on between parasites wanting to survive and your body's organic functioning wanting to survive and thrive as well. So there's definitely a kind of a battle going on there. But so when I think about healing the container, I do think about the physical side of things and healing at the cellular level, cleaning out the blood, draining the lymph, making sure your drainage pathways are open and making sure your lymph system is flowing and not getting clogged up. And I'm sure you've engaged with that with the movement. Like, how incredibly important is it to move and get your blood flowing and clearing out your lymph system? And
Yeah,
these little buggers.
we talk about lymph a lot, and I'm always like, you all need to be dry brushing more. We need to be ball.
Yeah.
I do a lot of ball rolling for our fascia, which is also
Yeah.
really good for our lymph. I mean, that is an absolute necessity for
It
optimal
is.
health or improving our health.
Very much. And there
Yeah.
is no supplementation that does the same thing as movement. There's nothing that does the same thing as movement. And movement is so healing and so important. Yeah, and incorporating that is so important. So yeah, I think that's the obviously that's the easiest component to talk about in the concept in the conversation about parasites. But then when you dig a little deeper, even from there, I talked a little bit about how I'm a trauma baby, right? So I have a cortisol brain, which set my body up for development down this like dysfunctional pathway, not an optimal health pathway. And so for me, it really has also been about healing my mind and my heart space and taking into like understanding the trauma that I have experienced and not taking responsibility for the things that happened to me, but taking responsibility for how I manage it today and making sure that I'm addressing, myself as a whole person. So I have multiple people on my team for my own health. So I have my own functional practitioner, right? And I have a psychologist that I've worked with. I'm currently still in counseling. I'm in maintenance counseling because that's really like things come up in life, and I think everybody needs to be in counseling, even just for like everything's fine. I don't need counseling. Well, but you develop that relationship. So when things are not fine, you have a resource, you have a support person. And so like, I also have a Thai yoga massage therapist that I go see once a month, you know, like, because your mind and your body need different things to heal. And I think for me, that's been incredibly important in my healing journey, has been to address my trauma stuff, which is very much an emotional component, because the body really does keep the score.
Yeah, I'm really glad you talked about that aspect because I feel like so many times with health, we don't connect the mind with the body, or like, as I like to call it, the body with the mind, because what's going on with our body can affect our mind and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa, right? Like the other way
Mm-hmm.
around. So it is such a, everything is connected and we cannot compartmentalize no matter how hard you try. It will just keep kind of rearing its
So
head, right?
true.
So
Yep.
I do want to have you like talk about some things that, like, if someone has parasites or suspects they do, but there are some things that if the body also has these other things, and I know one of them is mold, right? I know if the body is hanging on to
Mm-hmm.
mold or mycotoxins, it's going to be really, really, really hard to fully eradicate parasites. I don't even know if you can fully 100%
Yes.
eradicate them. Can we actually fully 100% eradicate them?
Um,
That's a big
that's
question.
I'm beginning, the deeper I get into my own healing journey, the more I think the answer is probably no, because we're exposed to them
All the time.
all day, every
Yeah.
day. I mean, I just got 2 GI maps back for clients that have giardia, and that's primarily found in water. So
Yeah.
like, we're exposed to these things all day, every day. And so like, can you fully eradicate them? No, I don't actually think that you can, because of the exposure. So I think that that's why one-offs don't work. Like for me right now, like, I haven't pooped a worm in probably 3 months. And yet I know, I mean, like, this is a huge accomplishment for me. This is a really big deal for me to be able to move away from the parasite deal into like the deeper cellular healing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, but it's a full moon. I got some acne back. I know we have a little mold spot in the house. So I know that that's something else that I'm managing right now. My body is managing. But I'm like, I just know. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going back on my paras. And sure enough, like, I pooped this morning and I'm like, well, that's a funny looking thing that's not supposed to be
Oh
there.
my gosh.
So like, it's just
Yeah.
in it,
So,
and they do have a cycle. And so you don't always catch all of them. And so,
right. So it's really
um,
more, so Sarah, it's really comes down to keeping them in check and making sure they are not taking over your body, because
yes,
that is when you have major problems, or if you've
yeah,
got really severe ones and things like that. It's just a very interesting conversation. But I do know with mold, which people who've listened to me for a while have heard my mold story. I won't go into it
yeah,
again today, but I do. That was one thing I always remember. So when I was going through mold in 2018 and people were like, I'd had some people say, oh, well, you definitely have parasites. I'd be like, okay. And then I was, reach out to my go-to person who was helping me too. And she was like, oh, you need to wait. Don't do anything with parasites until we get
mm-hmm,
the mold out, because one, you're likely to react worse.
yep,
And they're not really, you're going to have a really hard time getting rid of them because
yep,
parasites like to hide in mold.
yes,
And like,
they
so it's
do.
this whole like double-edged sword with like all the pieces and how it works together. And I also know with Lyme too.
Yeah,
I've read some things where like Lyme can hide in parasites
yes,
or like different things like that. So it's like this whole, like, this is where I'm just so big on every one of you listening, like learning more about your body and really
yeah,
understanding how things work together. Because we
mm-hmm,
can't just go after parasites if we've got mold or if we've got major dysbiosis, or if you're really depleted, like if your adrenals are just shot and you
yeah,
go to eradicate parasites, like you would be someone who could get really, really sick because your body is
yes,
not even up to a position to handle working yet. Like, we got to build your body up and support it,
right,
right, to get there. I think that's a really important thing, because I have a lot of moms listen and a lot of
mm-hmm,
tired moms, like been there, done
yes,
that.
Yes.
I mean, I
Oh,
still sometimes
mama.
feel like a tired mom, but not like it was when, my kiddos were littler or when, going through
Yeah,
health stuff, right? It's I think there's an element of like some tired that can be like a little normal, especially with kids and all that.
for
But there's,
sure.
but there's, I also am of this belief, like, especially when your kiddos get to where like they're sleeping through the night, you should really be sleeping through the night. Like we shouldn't be tired anymore. And or
Yeah,
not like all the time. Like
exactly.
our life ebbs and flows, right? But like, so if you're really tired all the time, like that is, I think, just such a big symptom of something going on in your body. I don't know if it's parasites, but they're probably part of the picture. Probably not the whole picture. So Sarah, I know you mentioned biofilm. So I want
Yeah,
you, because I'm sure people are like, what the heck is biofilm? Will you please explain that to everybody?
yeah, for sure. So biofilm is one of their survival tactics, we'll call it. So if you think about the war, I like to sometimes think about health and healing as, the nice way of saying it is a journey, but there's also like some like we gotta fight, man. You gotta fight for your healing. And so going to war with them means um, breaking up the understanding what their tactics are and then disassembling their tactics or like countering their tactics. Sorry, I'm not sorry. I'm a first responder. So my brain, and I have a background in criminal justice. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. Like, let's like strategize this.
I
So
love it. I
anyways,
love it.
so biofilm is just one of their tactics. And I like to think of biofilm as a shield. So it's something that they create and hide in that gives them the freedom to move around, to feed on the things that they like to feed on, which oftentimes are toxins, whether it's environmental toxins or other types of nutrition or nutrients or vitamin minerals, all that stuff. They're very good at stealing the things that our body needs to function, but they can't steal too much because ultimately what would happen is they would kill their host. So they're in it to survive, right? So if they kill you, I mean, we'll just get down to the nitty gritty, then they don't survive, right? They die. If you die, they die. So their health and their survival is dependent on your survival. And so they'll just wreak enough havoc to survive and make you feel miserable along the way.
So great. So great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, thanks, guys. Thanks. Appreciate you. Now get out.
Exactly.
Get out. You are not welcome. So biofilm is, like I said, just a shield. It's a tactic that they use to hide under. And so if you really want to eradicate them, or I guess eradicate is probably not the right word, but if you want to fight back, you have to break up that shield. And there are different tools that we use, that we have in our tool belt as practitioners. And you do have to shift those tools. You can't use the same one over and over because they adapt. They are experts at adapting. And so if you're using silver or garlic or NAC, N-acetylcysteine, or mega IgG, or any of the tools that we have in our tool belt to break up those biocidin, any of that stuff to break up that biofilm, you have to kind of continuously switch them out. And then so that it can kind of disintegrate that shield, and your immune system then kind of is like, there it is, I found it, now I know, let's go. And so it can more effectively deal with what's there. And so sometimes your immune system does need a little bit of support on killing it. And that's usually what ends up, you do need to support your immune system in killing. And your immune system is like, let's go, let's do this. It wants to function. It wants to get rid of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important thing to point out, is that we have to switch up what we're using. So you don't want to get on really long protocols that are using the same thing, because at some point it's just really not working anymore. Okay, something I've discovered, and I'd love to have you chime in, is, one of the first things I think that's so important to do before anyone even considers doing a parasites eradication protocol, well, one, besides working with someone who knows what they're doing, is opening
Yes.
up their detox pathways and getting their bowels moving, maybe even taking some binders and things like that to help mop up what is currently there. I have discovered that really helps my clients. So we just really don't have the die-off herc reactions that people talk about. I'm like, I don't want you to have reactions. Like, we want to mitigate as much as possible because you already don't feel good. I don't want you to feel more worse than you have to. So I want you, because I know you know so much about all that. So can you like kind of talk to the importance of that? And even if it's more of like, how do we get people who are constipated, right? Like, what are some things that they can do right out the gate to just get their bowels moving better in a healthy way? Because just even being constipated can make you feel so much worse. Parasites or not.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. And I talk to so many clients, and I do get a lot of clients that have the GI issues, because I think in part because it's just a huge part of my story. So it's easy for me to talk about. It's easy for me to relate to. It's easy for me to understand. And so I walk a lot of people through the constipation issue. And yes, I 100% agree that opening those drainage pathways is incredibly important. So you don't ever start with killing the bad stuff, because if you're constipated, if you're not pooping, which is the most important drainage pathway we have, right? It's the bottom of the funnel. So if the bottom of the funnel gets blocked up, every other drainage or detox pathway will then back up as well. So you have to be pooping. You have to be pooping 1 to 3 times a day. And when you're in an active protocol and you're using a binder like you were talking about, then you really should be pooping 2 to 3 times a day, like, because you're cleaning up, you're cleaning house. And so when you're cleaning up, you need to be getting rid of that stuff. So what I like to do, if there's one thing I could tell everybody to do, is to get off gluten, get rid of gluten. Like, gluten is
Sarah, you
damaging.
are speaking my language. I preach it all the time. So ladies, if you still haven't tried going off gluten, Sarah's telling you to. And especially if you have health stuff, if you're constipated, if you have health stuff, like if you feel amazing, then maybe it's fine for you. But you know.
More than likely, it just means that your system is a little bit more strong and vibrant and doesn't have the assault from other things. So it can handle the assault of gluten. Yeah. But most of us can't handle the assault from gluten. And hear me. Gluten assaults everyone. Like, no one can break this crap down, because it's not the same wheat, barley, rye that our ancestors ate. It has been modified. It has a bunch of toxins on it. Same thing with corn and soy. I tell all my clients, I'm like, listen, you need to get off gluten, corn, soy, and dairy. Like, those are the four baddies that if you want to start feeling better immediately, you get off gluten, corn, soy, and dairy. And those are the hardest ones to get off of, because they're in the standard American diet.
They're in everywhere.
Everything. And that reinforces the importance of whole organic foods. Like, we should be eating tons of vegetables and tons of fruit and really good grass-fed, grass-finished meat. And so, when we had that whole food lifestyle and diet that's nutrition driven or data driven, right? So let's run some labs to see what your body likes and what your body doesn't like, because we're all individuals, right? So run the data, get the data so that you can build out your plate appropriately. Anyways, I could go on a soapbox about that, but like, I know, especially in my case, like, I'm highly reactive to gluten. I don't have celiac, but I'm very reactive to it. And quite frankly, if I get gluten, everyone in my family knows, like, I'm down for the count. Like, I'm literally crawling in bed for 24 hours because I have a migraine that is debilitating when I get gluten. And so, like, I know it's a big thing for me. And it also, like, when I cut out gluten, my constipation went away.
Yeah,
which
it
is
helps so many people. I mean, I'm the same way. People will argue with me. Like people like to argue with me and be like, "Well, but how do you know gluten's bothering me?" I'm like, "Well, we can test. If you want to spend, $300, I can do a test and help prove it to you."
right.
I haven't done a test yet that for someone I suspect, which again, if you've got symptoms, you've got a
Mm-hmm.
problem with gluten, whether it's gluten causing the problem or it's because there was such dysbiosis because of antibiotic use or whatever, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's
Right.
like, it's a piece of the picture.
Absolutely. It's 100% a piece of the picture. And yeah, so when I cut out gluten, the diarrhea stopped actually, ironically. Because I had that period of 6 weeks where every single day, everything I ate, I was running to the bathroom. And I absolutely refused to go the traditional route and be told that I was like a diagnosis of IBS or colitis or whatever, fill in the blank with the poop diagnosis, right? I was like, no, my body is trying to give me information and I don't understand. I need someone to teach me about my body. And yeah, when I cut out the gluten and I stopped drinking, that was another thing. Alcohol was really aggravating to me. And my body is healed enough now where I can have a drink here and there and it's fine, it doesn't do anything. But I also find that I don't want to drink as much because it doesn't make me feel good, like, so I don't want to do it as much. But so when I cut out the gluten, my diarrhea stopped. And that was no pill did that. I mean, it was literally, I stopped eating gluten and because it was too much stress on my body. So there were all these other things are happening. And that gluten, was one thing that I had control over that I really could eliminate. And my body was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I just needed a little bit of support. Like I just needed a little bit of help. Now I have a little bit more energy that I can deal with some of these other things. So gluten is definitely, I cannot stress enough. And I think when I talk to people about coming off gluten and I get that argument back to you,
Yeah.
like, well, how do you know and why? And well, I'm mostly gluten free, so that counts too. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
You can't be halvesy. You're either in or you're out.
100%. When it comes to gluten, you're either in or out because it just sticks in your body. It really stays in your body.
Because
So you have to be very
it's
intentional.
like having one piece of gluten, even if it's not a lot, can stay with you for 90 to 120 days, like cause an inflammatory reaction for that long. And so many, if you've got dysbiosis, if you've got health issues, you've got symptoms, there's inflammation somewhere.
Absolutely.
And the gluten opens the tight junctions of our gut and can be a part of why you have leaky gut or IBS or all those things that the doctors just want to give you a pill for. That doesn't fix anything. It fixes nothing and possibly adds even more symptoms. You fix one symptom, but you get 2 or 3 more. Like my kids always laugh at all those commercials. They're like, Mom, you might die if you take this. Why would you take it? And it's like, well, because some people just don't know that there's other things to do because they're so reliant on their medical professional. And again, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for medicine. There is. And I know some people need to be on certain medications and it helps them survive, right? I get that. So there is a time and a place, but that is few and far between. Like so many people that are on a lot of medications or other things, if they haven't gone and done the deeper work to rebalance, then they don't know if they really should be needing that or not. I mean, it's amazing how many people I've helped get off of prescription medications, but you have to want to not be on them too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And I work a lot with first responders because that's my heart population. And it's amazing to me when we talk about pharmaceuticals, it's amazing to me how many are on the anti-anxiety and the depression meds and they're like, I don't want to be on these, but I need them. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to be on them, we can peel back the layers. Excuse me, we can peel back the layers. We can help support and heal your body so your body doesn't need this kind of support anymore. And like there's a time and a place for meds. And I like to think about, I kind of equate doctors in our Western medical system as kind of like the firefighters. They're the ones that when your house is on fire, you call 911, they send the fire department out because you don't have the training, the equipment, the skills, the experience to put out your own fire. You know, you need someone who has all of those resources in order to do that. And so, but the firefighters, they don't prevent your fire, right? And they don't stick around afterward as much as we may want them to help you clean up after something has happened. And I think of our Western medicine as very similar to that. You know, there is a time and a place for medicine. You know, if I am in a traumatic car accident and I have broken bones or, you know, like, you know, some whatever, fill in the blank of the trauma, I want those experts in that particular space because I need them because I can't do it myself. I don't know what I need. I can't fix my own body. And so, you know, if I have cancer, I want the cancer experts because that's a fire in your body. Like you can do the cleanup, you can do the prevention, you can do all that stuff. But if your body's on fire, like you need the experts who can handle that fire and help you put it out so you can live to fight another day. Yeah.
But then as you work through that fire, then it's like, okay, time to do the deeper work. That's what I always say. So no, that's a great analogy. I love that. My husband was a fireman.
Yeah.
So like totally resonate. Okay, Sarah. So let's kind of go back. Is there anything we haven't talked about with parasites that you're like dying to have to like educate everybody about them?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the only other thing I would say about parasites is that they have a cycle, you know, they have a life cycle. And so it's really important to, when you're doing a protocol or you're talking to somebody, you know, a practitioner who's going to walk you through a protocol, make sure they really understand that. That's kind of a key thing when you're in, because everybody should interview a practitioner and you should make sure that you connect with them and that they align with your kind of perspective, that what they're saying is, you know, have some boxes in your brain about like, I want my practitioner to connect on A, B, and C, and then that's going to be worth me spending my money on. Make sure you have kind of some of those things in mind and then interview practitioners before you give them thousands of dollars to work with you. Like, to me, I just think that that's so important. And when you're if you suspect that you have parasites or, you know, that might be in your space and you're looking to work with someone, make sure that they understand that you don't start with killing them. Like, right, we don't start there. You start with opening those drainage pathways and supporting your body so that it can handle the die-off, because there is this thing called herxing, and the die-off can be really painful. It can be really debilitating in a lot of ways. And so supporting your body before you start killing the bad stuff, because your body was surviving before you started doing this work. And so it'll be okay. So if you start supporting your body, get some of that energy back, support your adrenals, support your hormones, health, all that jazz, support your immune system. You start supporting that, and then you move into the process of killing and eradication. So that's another thing to be kind of listening for, and listen for a practitioner who understands that parasites have a life cycle and they hide. They're really good at hiding. They live in your gallbladder and your liver. When I really started to deeply clean out my body, I mean, I could feel these parasites around my heart, around my uterus, like, and as I started to draw them back to my gut so that I could kill them, I could feel them moving around my body. And so they go everywhere. They live in the entirety of your container. And especially if you've had them for many, many years. If it's an acute infection that you just picked up one time because you were traveling, that's a different conversation. But generally speaking, they're really good at hiding. And 50+% of Americans have parasites. So the reality is you probably do have parasites running around your body.
Sarah, so, I've seen like 90 to 100%. So
I know. I mean, like I just know that the research says at least 50% of Americans have parasites. And so I absolutely agree with you. I think it's probably closer to 70 to 90% just because we're exposed to them all day, every day. And we have this thing called the standard American diet, which creates the standard American gut. And so our containers, and especially in America, are really susceptible to parasitic activity. And so, so just look for a practitioner that understands that they have a life cycle, and you do have to be on a continual treatment for them. And to me, I think one of the things that I love doing with my clients is empowering them to understand what's happening in their body, so that they know, like for me, I know I've got acne popping up. I'm like, those parasites are back. All right, I'm going to run a quick parasite pulse, see what's going on. And sure enough, okay, so now I got to do a round of parasitic and just some cleansing and support, and go through that process. And looking for some of those pieces with a practitioner, I think is the kind of the wrap up that I would love to leave with, whoever is listening to this.
So Sara, sorry if you guys hear my dog barking, the doorbell just rang. So I was trying to mute myself. So Sara, will you let everyone know where they can reach out to you if they have questions, if they're interested in working with you? Because they're like, parasites. you know? So share all of that with everyone, please.
Yes, I would love to hear from you. I love connecting, and I love walking with people on their healing journey. In my practice, every SDN practitioner kind of runs their practice their own individual way. And we all kind of, we don't specialize in one thing. We believe that the body is connected to its in its entirety. And so, but I really do have a real interesting knowledge base when it comes to parasites, and learning a lot more, kind of deep diving into mold and Lyme and understanding how it's all interconnected. If you want to reach out to me, I would love to connect. I love connecting. It's like my favorite thing to do. I'm a highly relational person. And so I see so much beauty and value in that, which is why I'm a health coach, and I love doing that. But you can reach out to me via my website, thinlineconsulting.org. So like I said, especially if you're a first responder, I've got some specialized first responder pricing, because I know, as a we just don't make any money. And so if you're willing to do the work, I will work with you, and make that as affordable as I can for you. You can find me at Thin Line Consulting. You can email me at Sara Pagel at thinlineconsulting.org. I'm very reachable. So I do give complimentary consults. So I love to see if we're going to be a good fit, because I think as a one-on-one coach, I interview you as much as you interview me, because we're going to be in the trenches together. So I want to make sure you're willing to do the work, and you're going to hear me, and you can be a critical thinker, and you can question. I welcome that. And you still have to be willing to do the work.
Yeah, those are key things. Willing to do the work, ready for change. And I do the same thing with my initial calls. I'm like, we got to meet, make sure I'm a good fit for you and you're a good fit for me, because we work on such a deep level with our health coaching clients. So it's fun. It's exciting, right? It's so exciting. I always get so excited when you start to see them feeling better, and you're like, because you're actually sometimes I know people want those results like yesterday, but we're here to really get down to the root and really help change the foundation. So thank you, Sara. This was so good. We got to talk about poop and parasites and,
good stuff.
So fun. Such good stuff. So we'll see what questions I get, and then we'll have to have you back on. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions, and we can do a parasite, part 2 down the road and have some deeper conversation. So I feel like there's going to be so much more questions that people are going to ask me, like, Erica, what about this or that, So
I love it. It. That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Sara. This was so great to get to meet with you and chat with you again. So I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I love it. It's good stuff.